Thank you. I know that was for me, so I really do thank you for that. Let me just begin by saying good morning and welcome to the members of Congress. I'm particularly delighted to see all of you here today, but especially those of you from the other federal agencies and from the Office of Management and Budget. Each of you, in so many, many different ways, directly and indirectly, have contributed so much to this enormous accomplishment which we come here to celebrate today. So let me just begin by thanking you for your long work, your hard work, and your dedication to this effort. For me, today is but one of the truly multitude of very proud days that I've had the honor to serve as president. But today is also a very special day, for it is today that President Clinton submits his fiscal 1990 budget to the Congress, and it is indeed an historic budget. On this occasion, I'm equally happy to have the chance to introduce the Vice President. The Vice President played a critical role in shaping and promoting and implementing the policies that have restored fiscal discipline to our country. You also should remember that in addition to playing a vital role in the bipartisan balanced budget that Congress passed last year and the President signed into law, it was the VP that cast that tie-breaking vote in the Senate to pass the truly historic and don't you ever forget, it was at 1993 balanced budget. That was the plan that set us on the course of balancing the budget and eliminating the deficit. Please. Please join me in welcoming Vice President Al Gore.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And Erskine, thank you for your kind introduction and for your tremendous dedication to the achievement that we're celebrating here today. And of course, we would not be here, everyone understands clearly, without the outstanding economic team that poured their hearts and souls and lots of cups of coffee also into this first balanced budget in a generation. And I want to acknowledge with the greatest respect possible that economic team, Treasury Secretary Bob Rubin, Budget Director Frank Raines, Chair of our Council of Economic Advisors Janet Yellen, and Director of the National Economic Council Gene Sperling. A great team. On behalf of the President, I want to also acknowledge the other members of the Cabinet who are here, the Secretary of Agriculture, Dan Glickman, the Attorney General, Janet Reno, the Secretary of Interior, Bruce Babbitt, Secretary of Commerce, Bill Daley, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Andrew Cuomo, Secretary of Labor, Alexis Herman, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, Secretary of Transportation, Rodney Slater, Secretary of Energy, Federico Pena, our Special Trade Representative, Charlene Barshevsky, Secretary of Education, Dick Riley, the Director of the Office of Drug Control, Barry McCaffrey, Director of FEMA, Jamie Lee Witt, Head of the SBA, Aida Alvarez, Joe Duffy of USIA, Togo West, Secretary Designate of Veterans Affairs, and other distinguished guests. If I've missed other members of the administration, as I know I have, I want to acknowledge all of you as a group. Now, there are more than 30 members of the House and Senate here. I want to acknowledge two by name and then ask the others to join in standing to receive our thanks. The two ranking members of the budget committees in the Senate and House, respectively, are Frank Lautenberg and John Spratt, and I'd like to thank the two of them. And I'd like to ask each member of the House and Senate present here who helped to make this achievement possible to please stand and receive our thanks. Thank you very much. Both sides, here and here. Well, it's a great day, and among other things, I just want to note in passing that this also happens to be Groundhog Day. And as you know, there's a great new American tradition that's starting today, and you will see some young people here in the audience shadowing the members of the cabinet and other top leaders of our government, learning what it's like, and we're awfully glad that they are here, and General Colin Powell and others have come up with this idea, and we're delighted that they're here. I think of Groundhog Day also, I have to admit, in connection with that terrific movie by Bill Murray, where he wakes up every morning and it's the same day over and over and over again. You know, that's the way Budget Day used to be. Every time we got to Budget Day, we woke up from the wonderful dreams that had been spun out for us by our national leaders at that time about how we were going to balance the budget and how we were going to be fiscally responsible and everything was going to be great. And then the alarm bell rang on Budget Day and we woke up and it was the same old story. Over and over again, the deficit got bigger and bigger, and problems got worse and worse, and people got really tired of it. And so it was time for a change, and of course that was one of the main messages that then Governor Bill Clinton and I took to the country so many years ago. And then immediately after the inauguration in 1993, the President and this terrific economic team put a blueprint for change before the Congress. And, you know, not one single member of the other party supported that, and these members from the House and Senate who are here did, and there are some former members of the House and Senate who put their careers on the line and sacrificed their careers in order to make it possible for our nation to undergo the very painful changes that led directly to the achievement that we celebrate today. I would like to acknowledge all of the former members of the House and Senate who voted for a balanced budget and lost their careers as a result of it. Now, when you read through this budget, for all the excitement that we feel here today, you may notice that like all budgets, it makes for pretty dry reading. Numbers and graphs and tables. I love it, though. I think it's great. And let me, For those of you who won't pour through all of those numbers and graphs, let me preview the ending for you. I don't want to ruin it for you, but when you get to the end, what you'll find is that President Clinton is submitting to Congress today the first balanced budget in 30 years. That's the ending. Now, there was another step necessary in order to come to this remarkable achievement. The change brought about in 1993 was the essential part of the job. That charted the course and set us on the course. But in order to finish the journey, and in order to really get this locked in, he had to lead our country in another difficult challenge, and that was to create bipartisanship in forging the final steps forward toward this balanced budget. In many ways, that was even harder than the first job of getting the change in the first place. You know how bitter partisanship sometimes becomes in this city and in our modern day politics, but this president was able to lead the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to join hands in putting aside a lot of the differences long enough to create a compromise that reflects our values in this country while the budget is balanced. And so I would also like to acknowledge the active participation and help in the 1997 bipartisan balanced budget agreement that included the leadership of both parties and the members in both parties to strengthen our country for the 21st century. And to the naysayers and backseat budgeteers who doubted our ability to meet these challenges and dry up this that sea of red ink, our message is clear. This is the right approach for America's future. And now, with momentum on our side and our economy thriving, this is no time to go back to Washington, D.C.'s bad old days. Already, some of the very same voices who were so wrong in opposing our 93 plan and opposing our 97 agreement have been urging us to start spending again like there's no tomorrow, or giving away the store in huge budget-busting tax breaks. Well, we're not going to follow their faulty advice. We're going to stick to the agenda that the President laid out in his State of the Union address: strategic investments in the future, targeted tax cuts, and fixing Social Security first before touching any of the surpluses. We will also continue reinventing government to make it work better and cost less. After all, it is our progress in reinventing and downsizing government while improving it that has enabled us to balance the budget, cut taxes for families, and invest properly in key priorities for the future. For a generation, many in Washington would reflexively say that the solution to the budget crunch was to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, yes, but they said it so often it wasn't a policy proposal, it was a punchline, and it didn't have anything to back it up. But for the past 5 years, we've made the tough choices based on real numbers and done the hard work of actually cutting wasteful spending. And you know, the people who made that possible, they don't often get the credit they deserve. They are the federal employees and the federal managers and the leaders of these cabinet departments who went to work cutting the red tape, eliminating the waste in a way that didn't get rid of the good things about our self-government, but got rid of the unnecessary things. None of this achievement today would have been possible without the dedication and hard work of the federal employees who have made this President's plan work. We cut 316,000 people from the federal workforce, acting on the advice of those federal employees and managers, and we now have not only the balanced budget, but also the smallest federal government as a percentage of the workforce since before the New Deal. We eliminated 200 outdated government programs, slashed 16,000 pages of red tape, and saved the American people by that means over $120 billion. And because of that, always remember this is not only a balanced budget, it is a progressive budget that allows us to work together through the instruments of self-government in order to successfully address our country's problems. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come a long way from the endless deficits of that Groundhog Day 5-6 years ago. And we've thanked all the people who made it possible, but everybody knows that the one person who really charted this course, wrote the blueprint, inspired all of us to work as part of a unified American team to really recapture our destiny in America, to once again redeem the promise of representative democracy, and to show that we are in control of America's future because we are Americans and we have the fortitude to make the kind of choices that make sense for the people of the United States of America in this generation and in the generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a remarkable accomplishment made possible by the leadership of a remarkable President of the United States of America, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Bowles, members of our economic team, members of the Cabinet Administration, and I thank the large number of members of Congress who have come here today and others, all of you here for the submission of the first balanced budget in 30 years, one that will truly strengthen our nation for the 21st century. This budget marks the end of an era, an end to decades of deficits that have shackled our economy, paralyzed our politics, and held our people back. It can mark the beginning of a new era of opportunity for a new American century. Consider what has been achieved in so short a time. In the 12 years before I took office, trickle-down economics led to an explosion in the federal deficit, which quadrupled our national debt in only 12 years. Government deficits soaked up trillions of dollars in capital that should have been used for productive investment. Massive deficits led to high interest rates that slowed growth. And massive deficits also paralyzed the Congress in their attempts to invest in our future, as we spent more and more and more of the taxpayers' dollars just to pay interest on the debt we had run up. The new economy was being held back by old political ideas and arrangements. The deficit was more than an economic reality. It was a powerful symbol that government had simply failed to meet its most basic obligations. And doing something about the deficit was one of the reasons I ran for president in 1992. The day I took office, the deficit was projected to be about $300 billion for that year. For 5 years, beginning in 1993, as the Vice President said, the Congress and the American people have worked tirelessly to put our economic house in order. We have worked hard here to put our fiscal house in order. The government is the smallest it's been in 35 years, and deficit reduction has given us lower interest rates, higher investment, and, I might add, lower unemployment, more taxpayers, and more funds to invest in America's future. That is the gamble we took in 1993. A gamble now that I thought was not such a gamble at all. But it did, as the Vice President said, cost several members of Congress their jobs. Wherever they are today, wherever they are, I hope they know and remember that we passed that budget in 93 by one vote in the Senate and by one vote in the House. We did not have a vote to spare, and everybody that stood up, and especially those who lost their seats, can know they gave 14 million Americans jobs that would not have been there otherwise, and a brighter future for all the American people. And I'm very grateful for that. I also want to point out, as the Vice President did, that the job to be finished and to eliminate the structural deficit came with a balanced budget agreement last year. And we should applaud all those in both parties who were part of that, because it will not only enable us to achieve a balanced budget, it will enable us to maintain a balanced budget long into the future if we stay with the disciplined framework that was embraced last year by very large majorities in both houses of both parties. And that is very important. It's one thing to get the deficit down, another thing to hold it there. And that balanced budget agreement will not only go from a much smaller deficit down to balance, but also will hold it there if we stay with the discipline. We have not done all this work to let it go. Now, I believe if we will stay with the plan, we can balance the budget without further cuts. Indeed, the balanced budget I submitted shows we can balance the budget and still hire 100,000 new teachers and modernize 5,000 schools. We can balance the budget and allow hundreds of thousands of middle-aged Americans who have no health insurance through no fault of their own to buy into Medicare. We can balance the budget and still extend child care to 1 million more children. And above all, we can balance the budget and save Social Security first. In other words, it is obvious that you can have a smaller government but a more progressive one that gives you a stronger America. We've done more than simply balance the budget, more than just line up numbers on a ledger. We have restored the balance of values in our policy, restored the balance of confidence between government and the public. Now we'll have a balanced budget not only next year, but as far as the eye can see. We have to use this opportunity to build a stronger America. And let's just talk about that. First and foremost, we project that the budget will not only balance, it will actually run a surplus of $9.5 billion next year and over $200 billion over the next 5 years. Fully $1 trillion over the next 10 years. This budget reserves that surplus. I want to say it again. This budget reserves that surplus, saving it until we have taken the steps necessary to strengthen Social Security into the next century. One of the reasons that balancing the budget has been hard is that we've insisted on a balanced budget that honors our values. Finding a way to reduce red ink without shrinking the circle of opportunity has been at the heart of our efforts. And when we started, most people said you couldn't do it. They said there was no way to cut the rest of government enough to reduce the deficit and increase investment in important areas. but that is an important achievement as well. Now, it is most important of all that we balance the budget while renewing our commitment to save Social Security. When I left Washington last week and went to Champaign, Illinois and La Crosse, Wisconsin, I was moved by the strength and depth of the American people's priority for the surplus they created. I think they want us to save Social Security first as well, and I hope all of you and members of Congress in both parties will support that. We have a great opportunity now to take action now to avert a crisis in the Social Security system. We have a great opportunity now to be able to tell all these young people who are shadowing their cabinet and administration leaders that Social Security will be there for them when they retire. We have a great opportunity, those of us in the baby boom generation, to tell our own children that when we retire and start drawing Social Security, it isn't going to bankrupt them to take care of us and undermine their ability to take care of their own children. We need to do this. We don't need to take any shortcuts. We don't need to take any short-term benefits. Before we do anything with that surplus, let's save Social Security first. The budget continues our efforts at education reform. As I said, it enables us to hire 100,000 new teachers, working with states to reduce class size to an average of 18 in the first, second, and third grades, and to help modernize or build 5,000 schools. It helps to give our parents the tools they need to meet their responsibilities at home and at work. Among other things, allowing people between the ages of 55 and 65 to lose their health insurance to buy into the Medicare program. It includes a breakthrough investment in child care through tax credits, vouchers for states, scholarships for caregivers. It will help America to meet its obligations in international leadership, meet our obligations to stabilize the world's financial markets, to pay our dues to the United Nations, to continue our support of our military so that our men and women in uniform can continue to do the job for us. It will provide tax cuts and research and development to help meet the challenge of global climate change in a way that enables us to grow the economy while actually improving the environment. It continues to support our urban empowerment strategy, bringing more private sector investments to our hardest pressed cities and neighborhoods, while continuing to put 100,000 police officers on the streets and giving our children something to do after school so more of them can stay out of trouble and on the path to success. It will leave to future generations the gift of scientific and medical advances. The 21st Century Research Fund, the largest funding increases ever for the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, and the National Cancer Institute, will speed the progress of biomedical breakthroughs in the fight against many of our deadliest diseases. The budget funds these initiatives by continued cuts in government programs, by closing unwarranted tax loopholes, and from the passage of tobacco legislation, which, as every passing day shows, is critically important to the future of our children and therefore of our country. This budget meets the test I set out before Congress last week. No new spending initiatives, no new tax cuts, unless they can actually be accomplished without adding a dime to the deficit. For more than 2 centuries, Americans have strengthened our nation at every critical moment with confidence, unity, the determination to meet every challenge. For too long, the budget deficit, a worsening crime wave, the seemingly unsolvable welfare difficulties, they all seem to challenge our innate American confidence. In the past 5 years, the American people have met these challenges and have moved to master them. Now we have a chance in a period of peace and prosperity with renewed confidence to build for the future. That's what this balanced budget does. Now, I'm going to close my remarks now by asking the Vice President to give me a magic marker so that I can be the first person to actually certify what the budget will say for the coming year. Even we can do this. I am technologically challenged, therefore we're not doing this on a computer. But